But I mean, let's assume Maryland wins this game. Or I'm sorry, Michigan wins the game, and next week we're looking at 10-1 Michigan, and let's assume 10-1 Ohio State as well. Like, what's that game going to look like? Well, first I'll ask you, Dre. Who do you think would be favored in that game?
Oh, that's tight. Oh, you know, assuming Ohio State, let's say Ohio State wins with the margin based on what the line is saying, I would assume Ohio State because of, like, you look at their last two games, they would have rolled Ohio State. Excuse me, they would have rolled MSU. They rolled Purdue, and I just think that at that point, Ohio State would have had the better wins last couple of weeks, and they, besides the Oregon game, I mean, you can say Ohio State has been ascending throughout the season. So, I just think it'll be Ohio State for sure. Even though it's at the Big House, it'll be Ohio State.
Yeah, agreed. I think just with the firepower that they currently have and just the history with the game, I think Ohio State would be favored in that game. Mark, your thoughts? I'm assuming you'd be in lockstep with that.
So I had highlighted our guy Paul Van Wagner. So he hosts Virginia Tech post game for us along with Mike McDaniel, but he's a Michigan fan. So he works for ESPN Blacksburg. Radio host, does a great show there at ESPN Blacksburg, and but he's a big Michigan fan, so he's chiming in. I don't know if he's caught us before, but Paul, yes, calling the Buckeyes Ohio, of course. That boy digs at
Ohio East State Lansing fans. Community College.
East Lansing Community College.
That's actually pretty funny, but it's just, you know what?
That is really funny. That's funny. I mean, I would imagine that Michigan would want Ohio State to win that game,
of course,
because of what we talked about earlier, Dre, of
the head-to-head.
Potentially Michigan State winning that, then they would, and I don't know who they finished the season with, but they would essentially have their Penn State. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think Michigan fans are rooting for either team. It's probably you want one team to lose more than the other. But
I just want one team to take care of their business. I put it that way. Like I'm not saying go scarlet and gray, whatever it is, but I'm saying I just want, hey,
that's what it is, Trey.
Yeah. Okay. I just want the Vegas line. I put it this way: I just want the Vegas line to play out. That's all. But I'm not. I can't speak the words.
But if that happens, then okay, yeah, we're good. So yeah, that's correct.
Yes,
you want the Vegas line to play out. So
yeah, that's all.
You're okay with Ohio State winning by 3 touchdowns?
Yeah, because we're going to settle that on the field. We're going to settle that on the field.
Yeah, regardless.
Yeah. I mean, I could care less. I mean, honestly. It will make my day. You guys take care of your business, roll MSU. I get to laugh at them, and then I get to laugh at y'all when we beat y'all next week. That would be like, now that's talk a little bit of trash.
That's that
would make my day. It would absolutely make my day. Oh, it'd be great.
Yeah. Well, since I'm a lot older than both of you, I remember all sorts of games I could bring up from the past when Ohio State was a double-digit favorite and lost. And when Michigan was a double-digit favorite and lost. What's that?
He said that sounds foreign. Yeah. Foreign.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Ohio State was a 17-point favorite in 1996 and lost.
Okay.
But I think the spread's going to be around 10. I think Ohio State's going to be like an 8-9 point favorite.
That's fair. I definitely believe that's fair.
That'd be my guess.
I believe that's fair. Yeah. I think, and not try to put the cart before the horse, but that's we're talking an assumption that things play out the way we think they will play out. I think the X factor that Michigan does have that is different than any opponent Ohio State has had this year is that pass rush that Michigan has. Look at Ohio State. That's going to be a huge test for the offensive line. Can those tackles hold up against Ajabo and Aiden Hutchinson? Because I will say this: and me and Dez have been in lockstep with this. I said this ever since going back to the very first game, the Minnesota game, that something about CJ is that he, from a composure standpoint, he may be just as talented or more talented. You know, if you look at the last 6, 7 Ohio State quarterbacks, he may be top 2 in terms of talent, top 3, whatever it is. He doesn't seem to have the moxie and composure or swagger, if you will, of previous Ohio State quarterbacks. Like when I see him play, like I have seen him get nervous, right? Or not quite sure of himself. And I think there's a really good chance that Michigan can potentially rattle him. And force him to make mistakes. And because I think that's the best shot Michigan will have. Michigan cannot keep up score for score with Ohio State. If Ohio State just scoring at will, you know, Michigan's not going to have a chance. But if Michigan can find a way to kind of do similar to what they did against MSU, the very first quarter, find a way to force a couple turnovers early, or maybe, you know, maybe not, it's not going to be like it was, you know, 2 turnovers in a row, but force a couple turnovers, you know, they can get 2 turnovers somehow from CJ, they're going to put themselves in a really good position to win, because also what Michigan does well offensively is if they're able to get, you know, their typical 3.5 yards a pop by running, you start control the TOP, right? Yeah. And then you keep that Ohio State offense off the field. So yeah, I guess my point is there is a legitimate formula this year for Michigan to beat Ohio State. Will it happen? Remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think those are the two things you just hit on, because I made the same comment not long ago on our Ohio State stream, because I was asking those guys about the Michigan State game, but I'll liken it to the Michigan game as well with Ohio State, that because there are 2 dominant backs there, Kenneth Walker and then Hassan Haskins, that the Ohio State defense is going to have to face. That I asked both of the guys that were on with me, I said, you know, if we cover up the box score and you can only see like maybe 1 line of the box score, 2 lines of the box score, you know, what would you want to see that would give you best indication? So that morphed into a long conversation. And the thing that I said was, if I see that Kenneth Walker ran 13 or 14 times, and even if he had a big yardage total, I may figure, you know what, he had a couple big runs in the first quarter. Michigan State got off to a hot start. Maybe it was 14 all. He had 2 big runs, but then Ohio State ran away and Michigan State couldn't run him. But if I see 32 carries, 160 yards, well, that sounds like a lot of long time exhausting drives, yes, grind it out, and they're in no hurry to throw the ball. So if he's getting 32 carries, just like Haskins got 31 last week, that's a big formula right there. And then, you know, we all like the NFL as well, and you can think of a number of big upsets in playoff and Super Bowl history, and one of the more famous ones was the Giants front 4, Justin Tuck, Michael Strahan, and that group getting after Tom Brady. And look at that offense and the way they, you know, were a circus every week, scoring a zillion points, and Brady threw 50 TDs, and Moss set the all-time touchdown receiving record. But great quarterbacks can't throw it too well on their backside. So that's the great equalizer.
Unless you're Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes threw on his side.
Or Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford can do it too. He just, he throws Monday it to the other team. But
yeah.
He did that in the Titans game. Throw it, spinning around, pirouetting and throwing an interception. So that was cool. But one thing, Dre, that we had talked about just either via text or maybe conversation yesterday was Ohio State having to play back-to-back really physical teams on the offensive side, because you're going up against Michigan State, who really wants to establish a run and come out and play really physical. And then that very next week, you're going against a Michigan team that's going to do pretty similar things. So we talked about, potentially that physical toll that would play on the Buckeyes defense. And then also too, if you're Michigan and I would say overall when it comes to like run games and things like that, some coaches are copycats that, if Michigan sees a typical, maybe a gap scheme or a power run scheme that Michigan State may have success with against Ohio State, of maybe implementing that, next week to try to, to add it on to your current run game package that, maybe you can hit some additional runs. So I think the physicality toll will definitely be a factor, one way or the other, because like Mark saying, I mean, even if let's say Kenneth Walker does get 32 carries, but Ohio State wins out, wins that game. I mean, that's still going to be, I would look at it as a positive for Michigan, because you're coming back that very next week and you're probably going to try to do the same. So that's something that I'll definitely be, keeping watch of, to see how, number one, how Ohio State handles that run game, but then number two, just where does that rushing attempt number get up to? I'm sure Michigan State's going to try to get it as high as possible, but that'll be interesting to see kind of how that works.
Well, it depends, because it's also, well, two things. The second, well, I'll stay at the MSU Ohio State game, and I'll talk about why I think that could be a factor for the following week. Well, I think it also depends on how the game goes on Saturday for Ohio State and MSU, because let's say MSU goes down a couple touchdowns, you may not get as many carries for K9, right? But I'm not saying they'll totally abandon giving him the ball, because as we saw against Michigan, they never stopped. Even being down 16, he remained a key focal point in that offense. So if, let's say, MSU has to pass the ball more, then that would be less of that formula of physicality in the front seven, having to deal with K9 all the time. So I also think it depends on how that game goes. If it's more towards the scenario that Mark played out, where Kenneth Walker has like 30 carries and it's like 160 yards. Now you're talking about, even if Ohio State survives that game, now you're talking about a really physical game, long drives, right? Guys tired and stuff like that. But I think the bigger picture is, no matter what happens this Saturday, it's going to be very tough emotionally to get up for both games for Ohio State. Not that they won't have the right motivation, obviously, to win the Big Ten and get to the playoff. The motivation will be there. But to actually bring that tenacity and focus on that, and essentially, I look at both of these games for Ohio State as de facto playoff games. Literally, you're playing to win a division and get to the conference championship. You cannot afford a loss, right? So you have to bring it. And both these teams, no matter what their weaknesses are in the playoff running with you. So they have to bring it. Ohio State can't come out there lackadaisical and, they may get punched in the mouth. So I think that is something to watch as well. Will Ohio State be able to emotionally be at the optimal level needed to handle their business in back-to-back weeks?